Welcome, traveler. It's cold outside tonight. What's that? Where are you? Well, you're on the Lampeter, my friend. Or, what was once the Lampeter. It's seen better days. Used to be that you could travel from Orchard to Hollowcrest on these trails. But that was the old days, when the Elness was at its height, before the Foundation took it over. Now it's just people like me, trapped in tiny metal boxes at the side of a station, directing the trains going to and fro. Oh, you want to know how you got here? It's quite simple, really. You took a wrong turn in a train station, or a bus station, or you got on the wrong ski lift, or you stepped into an unfamiliar alley. There are so many different ways. Sooner or later, statistically, some version of yourself has to come here. You can go back, of course. Most do. But for some of us, the open sky is all there is left. So, we man the stations of the multiverse, repairing these lines in scorching heat and bitter cold, maintaining what there is left to maintain. That's what the Lampeter is. The desperate, the lonely, the cold, standing vigil over a forgotten and unloved set of back routes. Does that sound like your kind of life? The Lampeter is, or was, a vast interdimensional transport network. In the Prime Universe, it has an SCP designation of 7005, but there are so many more universes, and so many more foundations trying to record the totality of what it is. Its basic form is made up of a diverse series of mundane transport forms, which instead of taking the passenger to a location in their own universe, instead crosses multiversal lines, taking the vehicle and passenger to a different universe. The technology used to accomplish this is still unknown, and the Foundation has been unable to replicate it. Complementing this are a number of pocket universes used primarily for transportation hubs, maintenance offices, and other diverse institutions necessary for the line's management. SCP-7005 gives the following examples of entry points onto the network from our world. A small wooden door in the back of the Church of San Paluna Luca, which leads to an underground tram station that takes the traveler to a larger tram hub in Universe B723 Hospice. An abandoned and cordoned off jetty in northern Ishikari, Hokkaido. Stepping onto it takes the traveler to a large seaport in timeline Q944, Mintukai. A lost and found office in a train station in Lima, Peru, which connects to a large train station in Universe H020, the Great Inca State, and a patch of sky above northern Mongolia. Aircraft passing through this area will be taken to an intra-universal airport, also known as SCP-7005-77A, which services at least 350 universes in what the network's station masters commonly call the far southwestern corridor. The Lampeter was created 700 years ago by members of the Lampeter family of Universe Z999, Halogen. But it is now long past its prime. The Lampeter Non-Euclidean Shipping Company, LNES, a formal company created by the family in the 17th century to more efficiently manage its expanding network, began to decay and collapse in the late 19th century and eventually went bankrupt in 2021. By that point, their control over the lines had diminished severely, with many outlying regions under the control of local companies, states, and warlords. But the company's control over the central parts of its line remained necessary for any large-scale multiversal travel. John Lampeter was the last chairman of the board. he went insane, burning the company's archives and possibly himself to death, after believing the Lampeter to be responsible for the emergence of a phenomenon known as the Neon God. But that is a story that has been told elsewhere. It was at this point when the Foundation stepped in, recognizing that its multiversal interests would collapse without some control over the network. The Foundation from our world renamed its universe A001 Prime and brought out what remained of the Elness. But the sheer scale, the confusion, the tangled non-Euclidean webs of the Lampeter have prevented them from taking anything like full control of the network, or even the stations once under the Elness. So in the present day, it's managed largely by lonely, strange, desperate people. Some want to either hide away where they can never be found, some romanticize the line, the long hours, and the grinding conditions to keep the world managed. Either way, rust, collapse, and patchwork maintenance solutions are now the norm across the network. The Foundation's Department of Interdimensional Logistics has not been given the proper resources. Its few central employees are overworked and burnt out. As any decent seer or scryer could tell you, the Foundation's Department of Interdimensional Logistics will never establish complete control. Their interventions will keep the lines going, but more and more they'll just be the biggest fish in a diverse pond, never being given enough resources or manpower to match the Elness at its height. In a few centuries' time, the technology known as arc blinking, a kind of multiversal teleportation, will render the lines obsolete. The Foundation will withdraw entirely, and the Lampeter will decay in total neglect. Still, even then, a few lines will keep going. Patronized by poorer and more cautious worlds, the multiversal cargo train will be the most prominent of the remaining lines. A rare example of a Lampeter line traveling directly through the gaps between worlds. But even the drivers will have forgotten the name Lampeter, and the multiverse will forget the name and its history. But the essence of the Lampeter is only partially found in the place itself. It is also in the stories told about a conglomeration so vast, diverse, and uncontrolled that the mind can only partially grasp it, projecting onto it ideologies, narratives, hopes, and dreams it was never built for. It is, it has been, and it perhaps will be a place where the forgotten, desperate, and forlorn seek to escape their reality and build a new life, be it in some far-off world or on the lines themselves. SCP-7005, The Lampeter. This marks part 2 in my Lampeter series. Before we get to the reading, I want to thank you all for 250 subscribers. It means a lot to me to see how much this channel has grown. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll begin. The day we buried my sister, it was sunny. It was scorching. It was a little cemetery in the city, a scrap of dried out grass, yellow and burnt. When I think back on it, it doesn't feel like home, but I suppose it must have, back then. I'd never really known anything else. I didn't cry, I don't remember much, but I remember that. The shock was too deep. I couldn't understand what had happened to her. I stood there, between my parents, my mom veiled, and my father racked and sobbing. I was only 8, and she had just been smiling up at me. The day wasn't anything. It meant nothing. It didn't feel like any funerals I'd seen on TV, those sealed markers of ending. It was just a day, while the grasshoppers hummed and the wind blew through the stalks. She wasn't gone. She was right there, in that box. There was no story to be told except that of the gravedigger's earth rhythmically drumming on the coffin. When we left to our new house in the country, we took the train. My parents tried to talk all afternoon, but I didn't need them to. The wheels slipped across the tracks, embedded in the grass and wire, with greenery outside flowering further and further, and I felt happy. Now I could see it, the escape, the recreation, the play of the clouds, the wind in the air, the apples of autumn. I write this on the last line back to normalcy, only to find that the 05 Council has gone insane. They're burning the Foundation from the inside out. Kells is probably drunk on the floor, cursing himself and everyone around him, and the neon god prays at my periphery, almost seen, almost there, but always towering above all else. Nobody will read these words I write, but oh, my dearest friends, you don't have to. The words will stand regardless. Dr. Rosie Harderpool. By order of the 05 Council, the following file is level 5/7005 classified. Unauthorized access is forbidden. SCP-7005. Object Class Thaumiel. SCP-7005 has been placed under the purview of a newly founded Department of Interdimensional Logistics, which is currently operating out of Site-565, and is provisionally headed by Dr. Rosie Harderpool and Dr. Simon Kells. Current operational guidelines, rather than focusing on containment, have been designated to continue to facilitate communication and travel across the multiverse. For this reason, an unusual degree of latitude has been afforded for the hiring of personnel and access of non-Foundation personnel to 7005. Some containment measures in Universe A001 Prime have been deemed necessary, however. Specifically, Foundation personnel have secured all known entrances to 7005, preserving the public nature of the buildings where appropriate, and otherwise creating temporary research sites to allow Foundation members to easily travel between universes. 7005 is a multi-dimensional transport network, commonly known as Lampeter. 7005 consists of a number of conventional forms of transport, including, for example, trains, automobiles, planes, hot air balloons, and the Mongol Yam system, which has been anomalously altered to move between different timelines, universes, and realities. 7005 also contains a number of pocket universes, specifically designed to serve as intersections and transport hubs. 7005 plays a critical role in interdimensional communication and transport for both the Foundation and the anomalous underground at large. Its full extent in both this universe and others comprise over 4,000. Its full extent in both this universe and others comprise over 4,000 known universes, with many more suspected to exist. 12 departure points are known to exist in the Prime universe, but many more are known from anecdotal evidence. It was run by the Lampeter Non-Euclidean Shipping Company, or LNES, from the early 17th century until 2021, when the LNES went bankrupt. Since then, the Foundation has stepped in to administrate the network in order to prevent a complete collapse in the transdimensional communications network and the numerous Z-class scenarios that would precipitate. Foundation control currently only extends to about 832 distant stations. However, It appears important routes on the border networks continue to be maintained by groups of volunteers, small-scale private enterprises, and agreements between multidimensional warlords. Full Foundation control is expected to be complete in 2070. The sheer scale of SCP-7005 is difficult to describe. Every time we find another gateway, another door in a train station, or a portal hidden in a marsh, I keep thinking about those first Lampeter's and what they must have achieved. The amount of power it takes just to send a message from one universe is immense. It requires an anomalous power source capable of routing staggering amounts into extra-physical realms. We've all read the Scranton account of the places between realities. Now, imagine trying to find the parameters of that nothing place, that limbo, trying to define the undefinable. As far as we can tell, no new universes have been added to the network in some time. The technology seems to have been lost decades, maybe centuries ago. We haven't gotten the slightest idea how it was done. The Lampeter records were lost in the final years of the LNES's existence. Some station masters have spoken of great images and murals detailing the technique, but we found no trace of them. Maybe one day we'll find the fabled Z999. Maybe there we'll find an answer to this question. Who is mad enough, who's daring enough, to punch the first holes between the universe? What kind of brain is able to work through these endless anomalous problems of physics and reality? We have no idea what kind of twist in the head is necessary to see the world in the right way. The physical space Lampeter holds is immense, yet negligible. It is a network known to only those in the know, its stations hidden in the most remote places or the most unassuming. Its very existence is an enormous technical feat. I like to picture it, a network of stations and resting posts stitching together different lines and threads, existing on an entirely separate axis of being to the ones we know. But that's not it at all. When you look at it, it's just sheds and warehouses, a cascade of back rooms, a lot of very, very tired employees, and an interminable decay. Dr. Simon Kells. The following is an interview between Dr. Harterpool and M. Remu, an employee on SCP-7005 in Universe G299, Fayer Tomb. This was conducted as part of Dr. Harterpool's attempt to gain a greater understanding of the history and nature of 7005, due to the loss of the vast bulk of the LNES's archival records. Begin log. The camera opens onto a mountainside. Dr. Harterpool is heading toward a small cabin some 70 or 80 meters away. It is snowing heavily and the sky is a solid gray. After a minute, Dr. Harterpool reaches the door of the cabin and opens it. Inside, a figure, Remu, can be seen to the right of the cabin, sitting at a table with a headset on. A bed can be seen at a far side. Several prints, mostly paintings of cherry blossoms, are plastered on the cabin's walls. A small table is sitting at the center, and a kitchen area with a kettle and a hob is visible at the far left. 9-4. 942. 94. Nope. Southeastern. Eastern. Jerry, do we have to do this every... Hello? Oh! Remu turns abruptly. I'll call you back, Jer. Remu puts down the headset and gets up, smiling. I'm so sorry, I wasn't expecting any visitors. Please. Remu gestures to the table in the center of the room. Dr. Harterpool sits and smiles at him. Remu starts making 2 cups of tea in the kitchen area. I won't bite. Remu laughs. When you live in a small wooden hut, hundreds of miles up the side of the mountain, you don't often expect visitors. I don't suppose Lampeter ever considered moving you to somewhere more reachable? Somewhere that didn't require a ludicrous amount of power and precision to jump to? Oh, but it doesn't. Back in the olden days, when this place was inhabited, and how long ago was that? There is a short pause. Centuries. This is a tomb world. Have you met many of those? A few. I've passed through at least 3 on the way here. Huh. Well, did you consider just taking the ski lift over there? There is a short pause. There are protocols. This is technically classified by the Foundation as newly reclaimed, which means, but you're Rosie Harderpool, aren't you? Our Lady and Mistress? Look, if I do it, it looks bad for the whole department. Fine, I'm not offended, but the line's safe, really. Not the way I hear it. 7 missing in this quadrant alone. But none at this station. I run a tight ship here. So why doesn't everyone else? Ramu returns to the table with 2 mugs of tea. He places one in front of Dr. Harderpool and sits opposite of her, stirring his tea and looking intently at her. She takes a sip of the tea, staring back. You never saw this in the good old days, did you? Did you? The Lampeter lines have been here for centuries. Their golden age must have ended long before the company fell into disrepair. Didn't the last member of the family burn himself alive? That's a rumor that's impossible to confirm, given what happened to the archives. Okay, fine. I never saw it in its glory days either, but I've heard about it. We all have. The stories down the line passed on by passenger and station master. A little stop like this would have had 3 or 4 employees at all times. Constant maintenance, hundreds of lifts running up and down the cables every hour, dozens upon dozens passing through, and the people all flying to so many stations. Golden places, they said. They always say things like that. But it makes sense, though. Whoever the early Lampeters were, smashing holes in reality, they must have had big ambitions. A lot of capital behind them. Yeah, they must have. But now look. I'm not saying you people didn't do a good thing stepping in as you did, but it's getting really harder. One of the cables snapped last month. We were out of action for a week. I'm sorry, but I don't get to decide how much money we're allocated. I try to tell them, but no, I know how it goes. The illness. Yeah, okay. It wasn't much better towards the end. But it's cold up here. Shifts are extended. I've lived here half a year now, barely getting to go home at all. My adopted home then, a place that isn't a hut on the side of a frozen mountain. Fair enough. You don't have a home. Things are straining. The network can't go on like this. A whole chunk of the line is being routed through here, through a ski lift station. We don't have the manpower for something like that. The only reason we have a station here like this is because the holes had to be here, or something. Dr. Harderpool leans backwards. Had to be here? Look, I don't know. It's old station lore. There was something about the location they chose. Weak points or something. Places where it was easier to build. The two are silent for a few moments, drinking their tea. I got curious. I thought I'd ask around, talk to some of the old hands from the Elness. We have no archives, so I thought, you have to start somewhere. It's not exactly a professional interview, but I had some free time. I just wanted to see it for myself, I suppose. Why are you here anyway? Ramu nods. I get it. Lampeter, SCP-7005, is important. It binds things together, all reality. Did it need binding, though? Oh yes. How else will we find God? You think all of this is to find God? I don't exactly know what it's for, but it's the only way to do it. And I guess it doesn't have to be God, exactly, but there's nothing else beyond this. Every possibility contained in every universe stretching on to eternity. It really is the final frontier, this multiverse. If anything can find a hidden unity, it's Lampeter. Maybe there are multiverses beyond this one. What does that mean? I don't know. Just something my colleague Kells was talking about. Ah, our Lord and Master. So he likes to think, but I don't think I agree with you. All reality bound as one. It's a good dream as any, but a dream as big as that has to be better than as good as any. Nobody can escape a thing like that. There won't be anywhere left if things get weird for all reality. Maybe. But what else have you got? There is another pause. Dr. Harderpool gets up, walks over to the window, and looks out. Do you know what happened to the archives? Is there any station lore about that? Oh yes. They say John Lampeter, the last of the family, went mad. Ah, so he did burn himself to death. Well, maybe. I will not speak ill of the dead. But they said he found something, somewhere, deep in the east of the line. The east? There are no compass points in a multiverse. No, but it's easier to think of it that way. All the area you control is the west. You've got more of it than you think. Then there's the center, full of interchanges and half-abandoned stations. A broken network that was once Lampeter's crowning glory. Then there's the east. Nobody knows what goes on there. Why? Like I said, I've been working this part of the line my whole career. I don't get a lot of time to talk to the passengers. The lifts all pass above my head. So John Lampeter found something out there. That drove him mad. Yep. And then the flames roared bright and high. Poetic. What's the light? This is a tomb world. Most tomb worlds are, well, full of tombs. Exactly. The retrenched priests of the Flaming Heart believed in the glory of decay itself. Each one of the tombs burn eternally, keeping each corpse in a constant state of destruction. Ashes fall off continually, transforming into fuel as they float to the ground. The body is never destroyed, but it's always losing more of itself. Do you know how many files we currently have in the Foundation's database? 7,000. 7,000 individual anomalies. And yet, barely 10 universes away, the laws of entropy are suspended, and thousands of tombs litter the surface of an alien world. Is that meant to be shocking? No. No, I suppose not. Dr. Harderpool returns to her seat, staring at her mug. You're a creature of decay too, I suppose. All you station masters seem to be. Are you trying to rile me, Doctor? Maybe a little. I was born the son of a Foundation researcher. I grew up to join the Hand. When I was 30, I stumbled across a Foundation file that told a story of how Matthew Rumsfeld fell through time as a teenager. He changed his name to Ramu and lived a broken and unhappy life in the distant past. He grew old and died, but you knew all this already. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm a rat of the nails, Rosie Harderpool. Like we all are. Like you, I took my other self's name to remind me that if I wasn't here, I'd be there, or somewhere else entirely. Here, though, on the boundary between possibilities, maybe I really can find God. I hope you do. Hey, wait. Dr. Harderpool stops and turns. Ramu moves over to his work table and writes something onto a piece of paper. He hands it to Dr. Harderpool. If you really want to know what's out there, try this guy, Universe F433. He used to work in the East, apparently. He might know something more. Thanks. Thanks, Matthew. Anytime, Doc. Dr. Harderpool opens the door and steps out. She looks back one more time and sees Ramu back at his desk, putting his headset on again. 65933. Jer, for the love of... The door closes. End log. Ramu seems to believe that Lampeter, the line, exists solely to find God. Now, we know that isn't the case, but this is the perspective of one person on the line. We will see two more in the next parts to come. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for listening. I did have a 2-hour-long recording that I was going to edit down and just release it as one whole part, but that's a lot for me to do right now. So I will be working on part 3. So thank you so much for listening, and sleep well. Good night. SCP-7005, The Lampeter, Part 3. We will pick up where we left off, with the following being a personal log recovered from a train station in Universe L453, Harold's Hole, a universe located in the central part of SCP-7005, referenced by Ramu in a previous interview. It is believed to have been composed 300 years ago. Today, we logged 456 refugees from the East. That's over 12% of all the traffic through this station. We're a small station, to be sure, but the numbers of those who run is staggering to me. They wear whatever they had, whatever they could take, and rely on the mercy of the station masters to keep them in food, water, and clothing. We did our part, gave them what scattered rags we had, whatever other passengers gave to us. I wonder sometimes at the High One's plan. Our Scarlet King is a kind and merciful God, to be sure, but why do so many pass through here? They come in so many different forms. There are rich, or once rich, wandering in ragged suits and golden coats. There are the poor, faces ironclad against the deprivation they have seen. There are children, some who think this is all a game, some who understand that their homes are gone forever. There's such variety that all I have said seems cheap. Just petty categories that even I don't understand. All possibilities now collide into one another, and still there is something we must flee from. We have heard what dwells in the east, what spreads its tendrils to place to place. I cannot quite believe it, but the evidence is reflected in every passing iris, every haggard eye. I was raised as all the ghoul are. In the far desert, in the sands under the black sky, our only dwellings are collections of tents and the occasional shelter shrine erected by the long dead who came before. I never knew of a city until I came here. It is like the desert, in its own way. There's a purity to it, a rejection of all that is wild, despite the wilderness within. I have heard tell of other worlds where our king is not benevolent, but a vicious creature of spite and envy, an idea born of the crushing weight of suffering. It is hard for me to believe, and yet I will still make the offering of stone and cobalt, in the hopes that our king hears us. When I see the suffering, I will remember the luck he has bestowed upon me, and one day, I trust, all realms will be united, and the East will be free again. One day, I hope, we will feast together in his halls, the rich and the poor alike. The following document was found in the ruins of the Lampeter archives. It is one of only a handful of documents that was not destroyed at the end of the Elness's existence. The city shines. I see it from my window. It is within my window. It has taken most of my bedroom now. Only the bed remains. I don't know why I can see it and the others can't. It's so obvious. There is the city, and there's the rest of the floor, and then there's me. The city shines against the night, and it's beautiful. I used to hate it, like the others did, but now I love it. They move through it slowly, still trying to find spaces in it, hoping to get out. But they never find them. They'll learn to love it too. They'll have to. It sprawls and extends outward, gradually caressing all it touches. They rise, the steel and the glass twisting upward like the strange plants over what was the Mojave Desert, crushing the cacti, burying the roots in the sand. Does physics allow Earth's molten crust to be converted into condominiums? Will the lights go out as we fall into the sun? But does that matter either? Because then the sun will become part of it. I have not yet been taken, but I want to be. I bare my heart. I give it my skin. The city aches, cradling its way across the world. Its slithering trains create new jobs where once there was only farmland. The concrete slips and slides, playing in mixers, splashing across the valley. The Welsh hills become slag heaps again. The Kazakh steppe absorbs into the greater Almaty, into the greater Novosibirsk, into the greater Beijing. I love the city. I love it all. I love its alleyways, its theaters, blaring white light into their moaning, shrieking faces. I love the pristine slums, scrubbed to the bone like any self-respecting city should have. I love its ancient monuments, destroyed and cast again in metal, to be destroyed again and recontextualized in the future. I love it all. And most of all, I love the lights. I love those lamps on top of the buildings where mountains used to be, where tombs used to be. I love their colors, flickering red, green, and yellow. The grass looks lovely, splayed in yellow. I want to be in it. I give myself up to you, O city. I want to be one with them, a neon light blaring outward, outward, outward forever. Let me light the world. Let me show them how it's done. The following is an interview between Dr. Harderpool and Titus Quaker, a station master in Universe M433, The Hollow. Begin log. Dr. Harderpool is in a lift, which is heading to the top floor of a building. The walls and floor are both in the lift, and the buildings are made of glass, allowing the occupant to view the entire structure. It is extremely large, several hundreds of meters in height, divided into a number of square rooms with no visible furniture or inhabitants. Through the external window, a huge volcano is visible. The building is apparently constructed on the edge of the caldera. A number of metal platforms can be seen jutting over the caldera's edge, upon which a large number of hot air balloons are visible. These balloons appear to both be ascending and descending from the clouds above. On the platforms, a complex series of passenger exchanges are taking place. Dr. Harderpool reaches the top floor of the building. An elderly man can be seen on the other side of the room, some meters away. He is dressed in black, holding a silver cane, and is staring out at the balloons. Dr. Harderpool leaves the lift. Oof, it's a long way up. Yes. My name is Rosie Harderpool, yes. Dr. Harderpool sighs. Look, I work for the Foundation. I've had it up to here with cryptic responses from interview subjects. You don't have any tricks up your sleeve I haven't seen 100 times. And if you've got magic powers, it doesn't make you special, okay? Quaker turns and smiles. My apologies, Doctor. I was miles away. Do come and join me. Dr. Harderpool approaches the window and looks out at the rising balloons. Do you have any idea why? I'm told it was the only way. The hole had to be built next to the volcano. The balloons, well, I don't know about that, but it was according to the ancient station master lore. Gossip. The only way they were able to set it up, Dr. Harderpool. Is there something I can do for you? Or did you come up all this way to interrupt me with snide remarks? Sorry. Don't mention it. Now, I was sent by Matthew Remieux in Universe G299. Ah, yes, the man on the mountain. I've met him briefly at some function or other in the dying days of Elness. We've talked a few times. Good chap, a bit isolated, I think. Isolated? You're in a glass building the size of a skyscraper with nobody else in it. Yes, but unlike him, I get in a balloon at the end of the day and return home to my family. You should try it sometime. I don't have a family. Get a new one then. There are lots of them out there. Some that are the same as your original, but missing a Rosie Harderpool. Is that what you did then? Get a new family? Good gracious, no. I don't go in for that sort of depravity. Depravity? Oh yes, you see, well, I was born in a world that snowed all the time. What fun. Yes, it was. The snow did things to you. It changed things. Changed how they'd always been. You'd wake up and the people you'd known your whole life had never been born. Every possibility altering, changing, shattering around you. Eventually, the entire timeline disappeared, destroyed by its own contradictions. It's no way to live, moving between possibilities of life, seeking to hop between timelines to satisfy your longing to fix past mistakes. We all have our own path, and we should stick to them. Okay. Well, I have no plans to find copies of anyone in my family, thank you, but I'll keep that in mind. Now, don't be so flippant. The possibilities out here are endless. You can move from poverty to unimaginable wealth because the lint in your pocket is worth more than anything to some half-baked reality on the Eastern Arm. You can lose yourself in it, pleasure after pleasure. Mirrors beyond mirrors. I wasn't being flippant. I understand the temptation, but it doesn't bring them back. No, it doesn't. There's a pause for several seconds. Now, I think you want to know about my time in the East. Did Remu tell you? No, I simply know how this works. Why would you want to come up here otherwise? There's nothing here. This once bustling building until the decay got to it, the illness folding, and so on. Yes, I've heard it before. I want to know what John Lampeter found in the East. Quaker sighs. What he found is what any Easterner or anyone from the center could tell you lives there. What he found was the Neon God. There's a pause. And what is the Neon God? The Neon God is what you get when you mess around too much with the fabric of reality. Meaning, you don't have to go there. Remu is full of idiot ideas. He's young, idealistic. We must go forge our own. I don't care. Just tell me. Quaker sighs again. There was a world far away from here, a universe. It had an Earth, like so many of them. It sounds quite similar to your own. There was a village in this Earth, a village called Pirant in the Argentine. A village? Yes, it was a village. Then one day, one of the houses started to grow. New rooms grew on it. Normal, anomalous stuff. So their foundation stepped in. What do you mean, grow? It just appeared, another room, and then another, extending and expanding, moving from house to house. No quite two the same, but all in keeping. I suppose with the village's aesthetic at first anyway, before they started becoming more generic. A village just expanding. Concrete, glass, metal. Yes, and it kept on going, forever, without stopping. Oh. Yes, it took decades to cover South America. A single metamorphosis, expanding onward and onward, high-rise after high-rise, eating everything in its path. The people in it, they stopped eating, drinking, doing anything. At first, they became manic idiots, but after it finished, after the world was a single city, entirely connected, they just stopped. They broke down, they wept, they beat their fists, they cried, and then stopped, staring up at the stars. You know about this in lots of detail. Because it didn't stop there, it happened again. Oh. The East is broken, Dr. Harderpool. It's little islands of civilization between worlds that have become the Neon God. The first one, in Pirant, was millennia ago. We only found out what happened, where it started, because archaeologists who went back into the dead world after dead world, they never dared step into the original universe. Now, there are hundreds, maybe thousands. Thousands? Yes, people have tried everything to stop it, but nothing works. They have tried blowing up whole planets to stem the tide, and it just keeps happening again. And again, and again, and it goes on, still. There is a silence for some time. How did we not? Refugees don't often make it all the way to the west. Lampeter is vast, and has been ill-managed for a long time. The Neon God is just another piece of lore long forgotten. It's one tale out of 100 that come out of the corners of the far lands. But the further east you go, the further it becomes a reality. There is a silence for several minutes. Dr. Harderpool continues to stare at the hot air balloons as they ascend and descend. So there's some kind of virus turning planets into cities? Anywhere there's sentient life? And the trains take the survivors away? Yes. Including you? Oh no, my world died because, well, that's a story for another day. It doesn't exist anymore. It never did. I got out when I could, and left the rest behind. And now I stand here, day after day, staring at balloons, doing my part as I understand it. And that gives you comfort? Quaker turns and looks at Dr. Harderpool for the first time. What else is there? Dr. Harderpool puts her hands in her face. There's a virus turning worlds into cities, consuming them and leaving the people gibbering idiots on the floor. Thousands of universes have succumbed, and it can't be stopped. Maybe it can. I don't know. I just run the station. Good for you, whatever makes you happy. Oh, go on, try to stop it. Maybe you'll be the hero. I'll keep the station running, keep allowing people's whole lives to be lived when otherwise they could be stopped by the neon plague or by something else. Generations are alive because of our efforts. Generations more would be alive too. How could you not tell us? Quaker continues to stare out the window. I've done my part. My conscience is clear. Dr. Harderpool stares at Quaker for several moments before turning and walking away. End log. The following is a report by Dr. Kells on the Neon God. We were not completely ignorant of this Neon God that Quaker described. We had heard stories, especially from those with knowledge of the multiversal East, as we're provisionally calling it. Stories about cities that have taken over worlds, mock cities that imitate the real ways people live, build, and develop communities. A nightmare city, a shadow of reality. That's the thing about cities. They're essential conglomerations of people stuck together. The first cities were formed because farming allowed for people to specialize instead of spending all of your time searching for enough food to get you through the day. A smaller subset of the tribe could provide food for everyone. So that meant some people were free to do other things, like build, trade, pray, and so on. Conquer, rule, become a living god. A lot of these things needed to be done in a specific place, with other people. So, Cities were formed. People coming together. It is a simple matter of cause and effect, in a way. One thing happens, so another thing happens. But, in all the stories we've heard, in all the texts and legends, the same thing kept coming through. The city just appears. It starts growing. It's not a real city, a human thing that can make sense according to how individuals live their lives. It's just there, the same symbols of our reality replicated over and over, constantly. I grew up in London, huge city, a vast metropolis. The original city was just a little thing, clinging on to the banks of the Thames, a rival to nearby Westminster. Then, different settlements merged together into something larger than themselves. But there they were, never entirely pulped out. There are still old remains, walls, bits and pieces. The boundaries of neighborhoods. This city has none of that. It is a grotesque parody transforming itself over and over again. Like it's trying to become a real city but doesn't know how. Or maybe it's just a glitch in some system we can't see. It'll be thousands of years, probably, before it reaches us. But it is still a threat. We are the foundation, after all. We'll have to find some way to contain it. That's what we do. That's what our purpose is. The following poem was discovered by Dr. Harderpool while traveling into the multiversal center. In the circles come the muddied mind that hurtles around these railway lines. It spins its top across the bow and seeks the answers where to go. But there is nowhere to go. The ash aligns with the steel as it punches through card and paper slicing round. A new world where you're born again, another where you're stuck in mud, in circles come. The paper train screams your name. The neon god has marked your time. Your world is halogen and luck. You in circles bless the mud. You were born where you discussed. Your choice is made 100 times. The tree branches out across the line. Lampeter stretches in the dark, and in its veins the blackened bark. Its tunnels found, its rain pushed through. In circles all your choices come, the lanterns sway before your tongue, and all the world is steel and glass, now in circles beneath the grass. SCP-7005, The Lampeter. The following log is an encounter made by Dr. Harderpool while in Universe Q865, Grasslands. Begin log. Dr. Harderpool is on a large open steppe. In front of her, a stable and small wooden structure can be seen. They are reminiscent of a 13th century Mongol yam station, a waypoint for messengers in the Mongol Empire where they could quickly exchange horses, allowing them to make long journeys in a very short amount of time. Around the buildings are several large rocks. Most have weathered carvings on them, which are largely unrecognizable. Some appear to have newer, albeit cruddier, designs, displaying a series of forking wires and pieces of string. Dr. Harderpool approaches the nearer building of the way station. "Hello," Dr. Harderpool says. No movement comes from inside the building. Dr. Harderpool moves closer. "Hello? Is anyone there?" They won't come. Dr. Harderpool starts and turns around. She sees a man in his mid-40s dressed in furs, sitting by one of the rocks whittling a stick. This is POI number 7005-A. "They're not there. They'll be back soon." You startled me. Come, sit. Are you the station master? Somewhere. Probably. I don't like cryptic answers. Yes, I didn't think you would. Foundation generally doesn't. Very well, my name is Rosie. Dr. Harderpool, nice to meet you. Why are you sitting by a rock in a multiversal yam station? It passes the time. Dr. Harderpool sighs. POI 7005-A laughs. I'm looking for information about the Neon God. Do you know anything about it? Oh, yes. But it really doesn't matter. Come, sit with me. Let's play a game of chance. Of chance? Yes. One of us tells a lie about our past, and the other tells what actually happened. How is that a game of chance? This is a station between realities. The fabric of things is different here. The right answer should be easier to guess. And how it is a game of chance, well, everything is happening somewhere, right? Right. It's all luck. There are an infinity of Dr. Harderpools, and an infinity of, with every choice or proto-choice, and every branching possibility creating new realities from there. But why are you? Why do you feel the sensation of this one Dr. Harderpool? POI 7005-A gestures wildly. This step exists as part of a cluster of universes where the Mongol Empire never ended, where the entire world became a dwelling place of nomads. Only a few are connected to Lampeter, but the universes are all there, behind one another. So many steps, so many camps, so many yurts, choices upon choices, but each individual is still a person. Whole, unique, made of blood and flesh and bone, and yet each one must exist, because all things exist. Why do you all keep trying to? Because talking about this thing passes the time up here. In the rigging, behind the scenes, each universe is so full of narratives and meanings and everything else that all we have to talk about up here is, well, how weird it is. Makes sense, no? Of a sort. Alright, I'll play your game of chance. Atta girl. Alright, I'll start. When I was a child, I learned to play the clarinet. Was that the truth? Dr. Harderpool stares at him for a moment. You learned to play the piano. A violin, actually, but you've got the idea. Okay, your turn. Okay. I've been divorced twice. Alright. POI 7005-A rubs his chin for a few seconds. Once, I think, 8 years ago, you were in a place called San Francisco. Dr. Harderpool leans back sharply. Porous walls in the universe can do that? Oh yes, come. You try me again. I was born in Idaho. No. You were born in a place like Idaho, that would become Idaho, but it was called... Yes, spot on, you're a natural. Thank you, but... Okay. If everything is a game of chance, what does that imply? About what? Well, everything. What is the meaning of life? Come on, we're not children. It's whatever you want it to be. You are who you are because of the luck of the draw. Relax. Enjoy yourself. Every good moment will pass eventually, so hold on to them while they last. That's only comforting to people who are experiencing good moments. Well, okay, fine, but what else is there? I met someone who lived on a mountain. He thought the entire point of being able to see the multiverse, to see every possibility, was to find God. But if he found God, another set of realities would be formed where you didn't find God. I don't follow. The multiverse isn't the end of the line, see? No? Look, the point is that, just as every decision in a universe creates a new universe, every decision in a multiverse creates a new multiverse. Once you break the barriers between time, it's just a universe on a bigger scale, which means its counterpoint has always existed, mirrors upon mirrors. That the logic there seems... What else could there be? Your neon god will cover the multiverse. The world will be as one. And then another multiverse will come to mirror it, where the neon god could never exist. It's very simple. Now, it's your turn. Alright. My sister is a marine biologist. No, that's not right. No. POI 7005 tilts his head on one side. No, the truth is that you left the city on a train when you were a girl. What? Dr. Harderpool stands up abruptly. She starts looking around, apparently in panic. What? What do you mean? How did you... Who the fuck are you? I told you already. No, that's not a name. That's a sound. The sound of, I don't know, film crackling. What the fuck is happening? Where am I? Dr. Harderpool starts backing away fast. POI 7005 continues to whittle his stick, slowly, while staring at her. You're backing away, Rosie Harderpool. That's where you are. You're backing away at the same time as you're playing another round, at the same time as this stick runs you through. Fuck. Dr. Harderpool runs to the stables and mounts a horse. POI 7005-A continues to whittle and stare. Dr. Harderpool rides away. End log. A report by Dr. Kells. The refugees have started to reach us. Or maybe we've just been able to spot them. Now we know what we're looking for. Now we know how to locate stories of cities in the middle of so much confusion. And once we began, there were so many. The anonymous ghoul described them as ironclad against the deprivations they have seen. I'm not so sure. I don't see people who have built defenses, but people who have put on masks, trying desperately to seem normal when nothing is. From what we have heard, the people who are infected by the cities become like manic, gibbering idiots. This doesn't seem quite right. It seems everyone is affected differently by them. Some become manic, some began to despair, and others become bright, strange fanatics, preaching gospels of urban planning and high-powered development schemes. There's no one reaction to the neon god. It produces no patterns, no consistency, at least at first. Eventually, the same thing happened to all of them. At least 24 were too far gone to be saved. We've placed them in observation, but after a while, when all the rage and desperation was finished, there was nothing left to observe. They lie down on the floor and stare up at the ceiling, eating nothing, needing nothing, feeling nothing, as far as we can tell. It's like there's nothing left to move for, to get up for. Physically, we can find no problems with them. Mentally, they are whole and intact. There's no anomalous effect we can detect, just what we can observe, silent, bug-eyed, and beautiful. People keep trickling away from the research team. We've been working out of 2 buildings near Site 565, with a burnt-out skeleton crew trying to coordinate hundreds upon hundreds of way stations. It's not working. We need more funds, but the O5s keep diverting them away. What is happening up there? Don't they understand the importance of Lampeter? This is the principal organ of interdimensional travel, our only way of communicating with all that is beyond us. Yet, the Council seems more and more apathetic. Barely anyone bothered reading this page in months. It's just degenerating into Rosie and I writing down notes, interviews, reports. There's nothing systematic here at all. How can I make them understand? I could write reams about SCP-7005. I could use this space to map out the network, describe every scrap of its history we've managed to recover, detailing legends from old lines.
the Golem's Cascade, the Corrales Incident, the Lamplight Prophecy. But I don't. I write down my impressions. I write down what seems important in the moment. I don't know what any of us are doing. The following is a letter discovered on a refugee from the multiversal East. Although its authenticity has been established beyond a doubt, it is not known how this document fell into their possession, as they succumbed to the effects of the Neon God shortly afterward. To whomever it concerns, last night I dreamed I went home. No Lampeter has been home for centuries. We have told tales of it. We've carved murals into ceilings of our trains and trams, our ski lifts and saddlebags. They all show the same thing: grotesque men, the early members of our family, heaving and carving and building things that should not be built. I don't know what that world looked like, but I can guess. It was an Earth world, one of a standard pattern that was so common between our trains. It had a New York, a Tower of London, a red fort with all of its guarded ceremony. It had an Isfahan, stacked by the Hotski, like 1,000 others. It had green forests and Moroccan lamps, spires, symphonies, iron gates, and Wyoming nights. It had all the things I and others have seen so many times before. I've seen cousins of mine settle on such worlds, play acting what their presence, their past, might have looked like. I've seen them set themselves up as princes over their own fiefdom, but who was the first Lampeter? Was he a king? A rich man? Or was he a predator, a poor man who saw a way to make himself rich at the expense of his brethren? We all enjoy the fruits of his labor. The lines made us rich. We are prosperous, respected, loved. Tickets fly through our stations, building up our capital, making us unstoppable. Even the decay, the slow collapse of Lampeter has not done lasting damage. But I am the final Lampeter, the last one still holding on to our name. And I have found something far in the east. I found our home. I pinpointed in a derelict navigation room above a distant star the exact origin of the Lampeters. Surrounded by skeletons and burnished corpses, I retrieved the last fragment of a half-burnt computer from centuries ago, a thing of bronze and iron carved by the earliest grandchildren of our house. I found our home, and it was the first one, the very first one to succumb. The mythical Universe Z999 is the birthplace of the Neon God. And doesn't it all make so much sense? I saw images of it, grainy, pixelated things, continents covered in blue-gray cladding. I saw, in that moment, why all of it had come to pass, what the Lampeters were, how they had, in an ignorant desire for power, unleashed hell upon the multiverse. Because that's how it spreads. It must be. It spreads along Lampeter. Our networks and the Neon God are inextricably linked, because one is the pathway for the other. We did it. Our hubris, our desire for connection, for purpose, for more and more and more, for destruction of countless universes in the name of a single reality. Individuals living whole lives on our lines with no connection to land and time. We did this. We wanted a unity of all things, and we got one. A unity buried under a city of the night. The archives of Lampeter sit under a vast blue dome, stuffed with papers, documents, microfilms, hard drives. There is no backup. It exists in the one place it can, a pocket universe outside of time and space. I will go there tonight, and I will bring fire. I cannot destroy the line, but I can destroy us. I can destroy all that remains of us. Lampeter will burn bright as fuel, as the shining light in the multiversal sky, and every world that dies in the darkness can rest easy, safe in knowledge that their vengeance has been sealed. John Lampeter. The following is a log of an incident experienced by Dr. Harderpool in Z987, Lines End. Begin log. It is nighttime. Dr. Harderpool is in a train depot which belonged to the LNES before its dissolution. A fairly large bonfire can be seen 20 or 30 meters away. An indistinct figure can be seen behind it. It is wearing a pair of large sunglasses. Around Dr. Harderpool are a series of wrecked trains, apparently from multiple different eras of the 20th century. Some of them look unusually weathered, as if they have been gradually affected by varying climate conditions over the course of several centuries. Dr. Harderpool moves closer to the fire. Hello? Is someone there? POI 7005-B responds with, "Oh, hello. I'm so sorry. I wasn't expecting any visitors." "I wasn't really expecting to be here. What is this place?" "This? Oh, this is the depot, my dear. It is a place where old trains go to die when the lines don't need them anymore. You see this one?" POI 7005-B gestures to a carriage. This one was one of the first. It was launched from only the 5th universe the Lampeter had discovered. It's timeless and forever. "I can see. What a strange thing. We have trains like that on my own universe, but none that have grown so old that they look like that. What are those carvings on it?" "Oh, those. Aren't they beautiful? They're the Lampeter's own carvings. All the old ones have them. They tell a story of the first Lampeters, how they built a device to break through the walls of reality itself." Dr. Harderpool moves closer to the train and shines a light on it. A set of weathered carvings in metal of the train can be seen, apparently showing several men and women laying bricks on a huge wall. Extraordinary. How did they do it? "I don't know. I'm just a minister. It's not my place to describe the insight of the prophets." Dr. Harderpool turns back and looks at POI 7005-B. "Prophets? The Lampeters? Of course. They created the network. They allowed the Neon God to enter into everything." "The Neon God?" Dr. Harderpool slowly begins to edge away, while keeping her eyes trained on POI 7005-B. POI 7005-B laughs. "Yes. Have you not heard of us? His church? His servants in these many worlds?" "You worship it?" "I do. I understand what he is, when so many others don't." "He? It seems to be an unstoppable force that turns worlds into cities." "Oh, but he's so much more than that. Come, sit by the fire. I'm not going to hurt you." Dr. Harderpool stops. After a moment, she approaches and sits across the fire from POI 7005-B. "All right, I've got nowhere else to go. I don't even know how to get home at this point." "You're from the west?" "The farthest west. A001. Although I think we changed that name when we took it over." "We? Do you have a foundation here?" "I don't know what that is. A foundation for what?" "Do you know?" "I actually don't know. Just the foundation, the SCP Foundation. If you're feeling formal, it's always been a bit vague." "Well, Foundation Girl, you're always welcome around my fire. It never stops burning. Did you know that?" "I didn't. I've been sitting here for so long, I've never known it to go out." "That must get annoying in summer." "Yes, I suppose it must." Dr. Harderpool tilts her head quizzically. POI 7005-B smiles. "So you want to know about our master?" If he's not a virus, then what is he?" "He's our salvation." "Do you know what a city is, Foundation?" "It's a conglomeration of people in a particular place. What happens when you start to specialize as a society?" "Go on." "People come together because when you start farming, there's enough to go around so that not everyone needs to farm. So they can do their own things and often do them best in close contact. It starts with temples, barracks, warehouses, and then it gets bigger. Yes, yes, it does. Factories, right? You can make things, so many more things, in the confines of vast buildings where everyone is concentrated together. No more cottage industries weaving carpets. Now, a single room can produce dozens, hundreds every day. The city becomes a focal point for production. Yes. And so it goes on. The city exists to justify itself. What does that mean? Why make these things? What's the end goal? Profit? That would be too easy. The strength of a nation? But the nation persists regardless. No, the city exists for its own sake, propagating itself as a system. The things we do, our reasons for getting up in the morning, they all just fall away. Don't you feel that? Not for a very long time. But you did, didn't you? We all did once. That's what cities do. When you realize there's no point to any of it, the ways they came to be matters less and less and less, until all you're left with is the image of a city. The roads are laid out for a reason. Old sheep trails, easy walking, but these stop mattering. You can't see them. See how the skyscrapers rise, and they lose their function in your head? I don't. The city becomes something more than a function. It's an image. It's 1,000 ideas circling in it. It's alleyways where the poor live and die. It's broadways of thieves and merchants. It's too big. You can't see the logic anymore. Oh, books describe it, but you can't see it. You know it's a city built on a hill or a harbor, but when you look up, there's just more of it. Buildings, doing arcane jobs you don't understand. Nobody understands. It's just there. It's just more of itself. POI 7005-B stands up, spreading his arms wide. Oh, and isn't it beautiful? I used to be a pastor. I would lead flocks in worship of the Lord. But then the neon glare came to me, and I saw what I thought was reality. Just so many lights, so many sounds, and what beautiful lights they are. At this, lights corresponding to a city skyline light up all around the depot. A large series of skyscrapers can be seen fully illuminated. Dr. Harderpool abruptly gets to her feet, staggering backward. Oh God. Yes, this is one of his. He took this world long ago. We are so much blood and matter. POI 7005 removes his sunglasses. In place of his eyes are two fog lights coated in dried blood, which shine on the ground a short distance from Dr. Harderpool. Dr. Harderpool moves quickly behind the train where the lights cannot reach her. Oh God, oh. You are one of his too, Foundation. Go on. Go onwards, find him. Find the end of the line, and he will show you all he knows. Dr. Harderpool runs for the entry door to 7005, 100 meters to her right. As she does so, other sets of fog lights can be seen standing behind trains on top of warehouses and among the wrecks. They appear to be moving at random, but humanoid figures can dimly be made out, which they are attached to in the same manner as POI 7005-B. Dr. Harderpool reaches the door and swiftly exits. Laughter can be heard behind her. End log. The following log records an interview between Dr. Kells and 05-9. Begin log. Sir. Kells. Keeping well? I can't complain, sir. Family all right? Are they still alive? Still amnesticized and far beyond where I'll ever be able to see them again, sir. So, yes. 05-9 laughs. You really mustn't hold it against me. It had to be done. As you say, sir. 059 sighs and gestures to a chair opposite his desk. Okay, please take a seat. Dr. Kells sits down. 059 leans back, staring at the ceiling. Sir, I would like to know why, after 7 requests in the last month for an increase in funding and manpower, I have now been told that you are slashing our budget by 10%. A tenth, sir, on research into the most momentous discovery of our age. Kells, you are not the only department that needs funding. We have dozens, hundreds even, of potentially world-ending threats on the books. Research is an important part of the Foundation's MO, but containment remains our. Sir, with all due respect, Lampeter, SCP-7005, it contains an infinity of anomalies, all of whom could end us so many times over. It contains examples of how the Foundation, have defeated any threat you could think of. Sir, in theory, it contains everything. I've given my life to this organization. We have a tool here that can solve all of our problems, and you're just ignoring it, sir. I could have you killed in under a second, and you interrupt me? Are you going to kill me, sir? 05-9 stares at Dr. Kells for several more seconds before smiling at him. No, I'm not. And I think you knew that. Then will you tell, do you really think our council was wholly ignorant of the multiverses as you suggest? No, but Lampeter is not our only route out there, Kells. If you could see what I can of the archives, of the hundreds upon thousands of anomalies we have charted, Lampeter is nothing. It's just another route out. And is this why you deny us funding? I deny you funding because I just don't care, Kells. 059 sighs and sits up in his chair. Do you know how many of you I've seen? There's a Simon Kells who fought the Devourer and died. There's a Simon Kells who unleashed an ever-changing blizzard on the world, annihilating timeline upon timeline, forever, consistently, creating a whole reality that never existed. There's a Simon Kells who spent a century becoming a tyrant, locked in a forever war with an ancient monster, and a Simon Kells who killed himself so that would never happen. There's a Simon Kells who walked through the dead earth to see his wife, and a Simon Kells who snapped her neck. I've seen you burn in the half-light of a dying star to save all of humanity. I've seen so much of you, Kells, and you're still nothing more than a blip on the radar to me. How can that be true? How can you say all this, all of that? Matters? Don't you get it? It has to happen somewhere. Everything does. Don't you understand what Lampeter is, Kells? It's a mirror, for you and for me, to show us that we're nothing more than the luck of the draw. I give you money, I withdraw it. I go insane, I maintain my sanity. The agony of choice is no agony at all. 059 laughs hysterically. Kells gets up and heads for the door. And you'll go back to your office and sit there, staring at the screen, waiting for Rosie to send you more reports while you're stuck here, Kells. She'll send you more, and you'll reach for your bottle. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll die. Maybe you'll live. Maybe. Kells exits the room. End log. Final report from Dr. Harderpool. I write this from the last train out. I write this looking up at those murals carved on the train's ceiling as it blurs through ice, fire, jungles. I look up, and I think about my sister, about my world before she died. I arrived, at last, in Universe Z-999, largely because I didn't know where else to go. I emerged somewhere, the coast of South Africa, I think, but there, the city is even spreading along the water. There won't be much left of the ocean soon. There are no people now, not even the starers. The sun does not come up anymore. The water glistens black, and the corpses of fish rise to the surface, desperate, cloying, the scent of so many bodies washing up from them. I found the train line and headed south. The trains had adverts on them, with no words, only images that could never exist in that world anymore. They changed as I looked at them. I wondered why I had not been affected as the others were, and had no answer to give. The city burned. The city shone. Plumes of fire rose from factories that produced nothing. The cityscape looked like a microchip, strange buildings with no purpose rising and falling again and again. It had dinging alleyways and shining offices, industries in commotion, but no one lived in it. It couldn't figure out what to do with them. I arrived where Purant had been, where it had all began, if Titus Quaker is to be believed. I thought, at first, I was back at the train depot, with great husks of metal surrounding me. It looked like a scrap heap, A graveyard. I didn't even know where to look. And then I saw the neon lights. They were scattered around the station, twisted metal tubes glowing and flickering faintly. There were dozens of them. They were hanging from the roofs of the buildings, emerging from the tarmac on the roads. They clustered together, following lines and patterns. Skyscrapers littered the air around me, and I followed the lights inward. There were so many colors: red, blue, purple. But as I got closer and closer to some imagined center, they started to become white, yellow. Everything looked yellow in that light, that burning light. The streets wound large and small, twisting in unnatural directions. The suburbs were becoming a labyrinth. Finally, we stopped, and there, where it all had started, I saw the neon god. A wall, 100 feet high and 50 feet wide, jutted from the ground like a shard, a stalagmite of steel. No more sound could be heard, not even the wind, like it was straining to hear something. All around, the yellow lights were strewn, scorching patches of cement like a graveyard. The lights were bound to the wall, attached irregularly with metal and wire. They were arranged in rows and columns. I wasn't sure what it was. An attempt at art? A warning? But no, I realized, finally, that it was meant to be writing. It was meant to be a message. The lights were trying to spell out letters, but they didn't know what letters were, what a sentence was, what a word could mean. It was an uneven scrawl in symbols that did not exist. And all above us, no stars shone. There was nothing left, in that center of all that devastation, but these things, these yellow and staring lights, trying to be something and failing. Now, I'm here again, on another train heading out of the city, writing these words. Above me are images of men and women hammering and chiseling, carving out a hole in their universe, striking out into infinity. And it was while looking at these murals that something occurred to me. John Lampeter was wrong. Delacroix was wrong. The first Lampeters did not spread the neon god through their networks. That wasn't it at all. They were escaping it. Lampeter, SCP-7005. This entire endeavor, these centuries of construction, longing, dreaming. Lampeter, those lonely nights of station masters in ski lifts, volcanoes, stables, wishing wells, whatever else, as they stared up at the sky, at the stars that once, as children, they had thought promised infinity. All of them, driven by something more than mere flesh and matter. Lampeter is an escape route. It was built without hope, without design. It was built as an act of crazed desperation in the dark, as suffering tried to get away, get out, to remove themselves from the neon void that lay behind them. And in doing so, Lampeter has allowed billions upon billions to live their lives, entire histories, entire civilizations living and falling. Who cares about luck when there is life to be lived? There is no steel and glass here. It does not move with the winds. The murals are chiseled hard and firm into those forms themselves. Whatever luck or chance has influence on their design, in the enormity of all things, is irrelevant. The day we buried my sister, it was sunny, and I fled from the city. I took a train out, away from that day, as the sun burnt and the mourners swayed gently, where nothing made sense. I took a train out of the city, and I became Rosie Harderpool. Out among the autumn leaves, the apples I would eat, the auburn sun as it hit the grass. I took my chisels from my sleeping hands and carved murals into the air itself. I carved them into the metal and russet red, into the lines upon lines of train tracks. As I took myself away, and so I stood there, before the neon, in its yellow and blinkered heart, and saw it for what it was. Not even nothing.